Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about The Walking Dead and what if the Saviors won all-out war. And in this scenario, we'll be looking at episode 16 of season 8 and what if Eugene actually made working bullets, and when Rick and the Coalition went up to that field, the Saviors were there and they were ready to fight with working guns. So let's jump right into this with the immediate aftermath, and everyone in that field on Rick's group would be killed by the Saviors. So we're losing the majority of the characters, and all the leaders and the warriors of the Coalition are just wiped out in one swift act. Dwight would then be executed soon after or just before the death of Rick and everyone else. And once the Saviors have won that battle, wiped out almost the entire force, they would then go back to the hilltop, which has then been reclaimed by Oceanside when the Saviors also attacked Hilltop. Oceanside then attacked Hilltop and then pushed the Saviors back. Oceanside and everyone there be thinking they won the war, to then find Negan and all the Saviors marching down to Hilltop, wiping out all the remaining fighters, killing most of the Oceanside fighters, but also keeping some captured to find out where Oceanside is, so Oceanside will then become a vassal of the Sanctuary and the Saviors once again. And as well, all of the ex-Saviors, including Alden, would have then been branded traitors and killed. So the only characters which have survived all out war was Eugene because he sided with the Saviors, and Gabriel because he was captured by Negan. However, with Gabriel the way he is at the end of season 8, I believe Gabriel would have taken his own life at some point down the line, so Eugene is the only character to survive the war, and the Saviors wouldn't come out this unscathed though. As the Saviors lost almost all their leaders, Negan would have to spend time restructuring the Saviors to find more leaders, and they lost most of their vassals, so they'd have to search further, which would lead to way more conflict with the Saviors and other new communities as they force people to become their vassals. The only vassals which would remain from the war is Hilltop, even though it might have been destroyed. The Saviors have proven time and time again they value the Hilltop more than any of the other communities, probably because how much food it provides. So they would recolonize the Hilltop and restructure and rebuild it to make sure they won't rebel again, but also to make sure that they remain loyal. Maybe they put it as a Savior outpost and they structure Saviors to now live at the communities they are ruling over. So instead of just pinning up once a month, once a week, you now have Savior outposts around communities. The way he leads would definitely change. Instead of being very lenient with these vassals, Negan and the Saviors would become way more overbearing to make sure the vassals never become rebellious or get any ideas. Maybe they remove all their weapons or most of their weapons, so the vassals have to rely on the Saviors to defend themselves. And moving a few more years down the line, we won't even get to Negan and the Saviors versus the Whisperers, because there is no Morgan because he died on that field. The events of Fear Season 6 play out completely differently, and that means that Teddy would never have been stopped in that submarine, and he would have achieved what he wanted, which was nuking America. So the Saviors would either be wiped out, or they would now be living in a nuclear wasteland moving forwards. However, let's imagine that the events of Fear Season 6 don't play out like that. The Saviors make it to year 10 and they meet the Whisperers. With the Saviors still being around and the dominant force in Virginia and having vassals all over the place after 10 years of growth, the Whisperers stand no chance. With Eugene still around, the Saviors would never have run out of ammo, and the Whisperers would have a war with the Saviors but lose. And after that, there's no real threat for Negan and the Saviors, and they will continue in Virginia growing and growing. Their war would have heavy losses though, so they would have to rebuild. But outside that, there's no more threats. If we look at the Commonwealth, because our community never goes there, it's clear Lance wanted to be the governor, so he would have eventually have overthrown Pamela. And with variant walkers out there, it's clear, as seen in Season 11, that the Commonwealth would fall without our community there to save the Commonwealth. Lance or Pamela, depending who is in charge of the community, probably still Pamela. She would have let the community die and saved the few rich. So most people would have been wiped out without our community there. However, it is not over. We've already had one death scenario with Fear Season 6. Another one would then happen in year 12, as with there no Rick at the CRM, with all this building, in year 12, no matter what, the Saviors would have been wiped out by the CRM, as General Beale's plan was to wipe out Portland and then go from East Coast to West Coast, wiping out every community they find. So eventually the Saviors in year 12, no matter how big they are, would have come across the CRM and a war would have broke out that they would have inevitably lost. So the Croat and the whole let's go find Negan stuff in almost 20 years in the apocalypse would have never have happened because they would have been wiped out too. So there's no events of Dead City whatsoever. It's just they all die in year 12 no matter what because Rick isn't around to stop Major General Beale. And that is what I think would happen to the furthest extent right up to where we are now in the timeline of the Walking Dead universe. Please tell me down below, do you think I missed anything about this what if Negan and the Saviors won the war? Or do you think I have it pretty much nail on the head? This is it for me today, so thank you for listening and I'll talk to you later.